Hello and welcome everybody, it's Stephen and I'm a popular investor on the eToro platform. As usual, if you could please like this video and subscribe to my channel, that would be amazing. Thank you very much. So today I'm going to be doing a video which explains exactly what happened last week in the markets, and also going through a little bit about how our portfolio performed overall. So last week was a good week in the market again, both for the indices and for our portfolio. So the Nasdaq was up about 1.1% for the week, and the S&P 500 was about 0.9% up for the week. So the markets have continued to rally. Our portfolio did really well last week again, and is actually up 3% overall for the week. And a lot of that has to do with the really good markets that we had last week in the stock market, but also the gains that we also made from our crypto assets in our portfolio as well. So what happened in the markets last week? Well, in the US it started quite slow. A lot of that was to do with concerns that the market may have hit its economic peak, which I don't think it has. And then also we saw some concerns around the coronavirus, and in particular the Delta variant strain, where obviously cases have been increasing around the world. So this kind of weighed on the market. We also saw some comments that were made from China around the online gambling industry, in which they said that online gambling was very negative for overall for the youth in China. So that had an effect on the markets. However, as the week progressed, we saw some really good earning reports which helped to buoy the market, and we also saw some payroll data as well, which was really positive in the US. And we also saw some pandemic high unemployment rates as well in the US, which was really good for the markets overall. In Europe, we saw some really good results this week, including in the UK and in Germany overall, with the stock markets generally ticking up. We also saw some news around Germany, in which they plan to ask people to wear masks again on public transport, as well as in shops, to try and curb some of the increases in the Delta variant cases. The UK also have decided to vaccinate 16 and 17-year-olds. Previously they had said that they weren't going to vaccinate 16 and 17-year-olds, but they have now decided to do so. So overall the UK is making really good progress in its vaccination. The Bank of England also stated this week that it is likely at some stage to start fiscal tightening efforts. It hasn't said exactly when they plan to do this, but it is very much in their overall plans. It is also looking likely that they will increase their interest rates from 0.1% to about 0.2% sometime in early 2022. And it is expected that inflation is due to peak in either the end of 2021 or early 2022 in terms of the overall forecast. And they expect that to peak at about 4% before coming down again to the Bank of England's general target rate, which is about 2%. We also saw some good results from China this week, and I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that the last couple of weeks have been quite weak overall in the Chinese market, and I think buyers had seen an opportunity to buy the dips overall in the market. However, during the week there were some negative comments from the Chinese government which stated that they're planning to put more regulations in place around online gambling. There's also a quarterly policy meeting that was held last week in China, in which they stated that they plan to make sure that there was adequate and ample liquidity in the market to be able to support the markets in China. There's also some economic data showed that there'd been slower momentum in terms of the manufacturing and service industries in China overall in June and July. And I think a lot of this is to do with the worsening of the Delta variant in China. And actually China has actually recorded its most amounts of cases since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. and that there is increasing number of cases in the country, which is not helping with the overall growth of the economy in the time being. However, it has been stated that over 40% of Chinese citizens now have received the vaccination for COVID-19, and this number is due to rise. So there should be some improvements over the coming months. The top 3 performing stocks of last week. In number 1 was Magnite, which is a sell-side advertising company. They actually announced really great quarterly results this week, and it actually caused the share price to actually increase by over 11% overall for the week. So a very great week for Magnite. I'm expecting us at some stage to hit our all-time highs for Magnite sometime towards the end of 2021. The second best performing stock of last week was Coinbase. Obviously, over the last couple of weeks, Coinbase has... The second best performing stock in our portfolio was Coinbase. Obviously, over the last couple of weeks, there has been a lot of positive sentiment again in crypto, and I think that this has helped increase the overall share price of Coinbase, which went up about 7.5% last week. They are also due to announce the corporate earning results next week, so it'll be very interesting to see how well they have done for the previous quarter, but I'm expecting to see quite good growth overall for Coinbase. The third best performing stock in our portfolio was a company called 𝘁cie𝗶𝗶𝗴, which grew about 7% last week overall in the markets. And what they are is a group of amusement parks in the US, and I'm very bullish on them overall moving forward. They had a very difficult 2020 and early 2021. However, this is a seasonal business, and they were able to open up in time for the new season. And because the amusement parks are now completely open and citizens are not required to wear masks overall, we have seen some really good results so far in terms of visitor numbers for the parks, and all parks are currently open at the moment. So I'm expecting us to see towards the end of 2021 to see really good growth overall in this stock. It's not going to be plain sailing, because obviously there are some concerns in the markets around the Delta variant. However, as I previously said, the vaccination efforts are going really well in the US, and I think that the parks will continue to stay open and be able to generate revenue. And also the fact that it is mainly a domestic business, and they don't rely on as much international visitors as like Disney would, for example. I think that there is a lot of pent-up demand in the US for people to visit these amusement parks. So I'm very bullish overall. Over to crypto now. Last week again was a really good week overall in the crypto markets, and Bitcoin actually rose about 5% for the week last week. However, we saw even bigger gains from Ethereum last week, which actually rose over 24%. And this is because there was a hard fork that occurred on the Ethereum blockchain, which is probably the biggest hard fork for Ethereum since its overall launch. And what that is called the London fork. And what that means is that Ethereum is basically becoming deflationary. So previously, before, a lot of the fees went over to miners in its proof of work algorithm. However, now what the new fork plans to do is make sure that the fees that you pay in terms of transaction fees are then burnt, which overall makes the currency disinflationary. What we have seen with Bitcoin is a phenomenon called the Bitcoin supply squeeze. And what that basically means is that there is a big demand for Bitcoin at the moment, and there is a limited supply in the market. So what happens is you have this buying pressure but limited supply, which helps to increase the price. But why is there further buying pressure? I think what happened is during the dips in May and June, we saw a transfer of Bitcoin from the short-term speculators to the long-term hodlers overall, or over to institutions. these people have a lot stronger hands and are much less likely to be selling their Bitcoin overall in the market. And I think that this has shown because we have seen very limited amount of inflows in terms of into exchanges and large outflows. So there is a surplus of inflows to outflows. So this means that there is less Bitcoin on the market overall to sell. We have also seen some big buying pressure from over-the-counter trading, and what this means is that these are private buyers who are buying Bitcoin on the private market, and this helps to, one, ensure that it's done with discretion in mind, so it's not completely public, and the second thing is so it doesn't move the price overall. However, what we will see is that the buyers of Bitcoin in these large quantities, at some stage they will be required to disclose these, especially if they are public companies or large hedge funds, for example. So we could see some even more price pressure to the upside over the next couple of months, which is something that I'm really expecting. The other thing which is showing that there is a lack of Bitcoin overall to sell on the market is the fact that we have seen a lot of data from Bitcoin miners which shows that they are currently hodling onto their Bitcoin. So as I said previously, in May and June, a lot of Bitcoin miners were actually selling their Bitcoin, especially in China, because they were required to move their and relocate their mining equipment to other countries, so they had large CAPEX costs. However, in July and in August so far, what we are seeing is those miners starting to hodl onto their Bitcoin, which shows that they think in the future it's going to be a higher Bitcoin price overall. They also have access to easy finance in this low interest rate environment, and many of these large miners are also on the stock exchange, so they have this access to money, so they don't really want to be using a finite asset like Bitcoin, which is scarce and they're expecting to go up in price. So I think we will continue to see miners hodl onto their Bitcoin, and this should also put price pressure on the markets. We're also seeing an influx of ETF applications which have been filed in a number of different countries, including the US and in Europe. We recently saw an ETF filing in France, and it looks like that is going to go through as well. So that shows that there is big appetite for ETFs for Bitcoin in Europe overall. And we've also seen many ETF applications in the US. I think that there is currently about 18 ETFs currently in the process being reviewed by the SEC. Obviously, they're going to be looking at these very closely, and this may take some time. However, when we do see a ETF granted, it is very likely that there's going to be a huge amount of demand, and many US citizens are going to want to have this ETF in their long-term investment portfolio and also in their tax harvesting accounts such as IRAs, etc. So keep an eye on that. But what I'm expecting us is to have a blockbuster end to 2021. And as I've said previously before, I do expect Bitcoin to get to about $100,000 by the end of the year. So I think that there is huge potential, and I think the people that held in May and in June are going to be very well rewarded for their patience. Thank you very much for listening to my video today. As usual, if you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer them. I'm also thinking about maybe at the end of this month to do a call with all of our investors to allow you to be able to ask me any questions that you want. So keep an eye out for that, and I will announce that in due course. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great week ahead.